What is up, everybody? Jason here with the Salty Dogs Podcast, and I just want to welcome you to our bonus episode. This episode is an addition to Season 3, Episode 1 on the topic of depression, authenticity, and vulnerability. Me and Chris got to jump onto a Zoom call, so we did record over the internet. You can tell that we recorded over the internet, but we got to have a conversation with a guy named Pete McAllen, who is with Pyramid Park. He's a singer-songwriter, and he has an album out called Vulnerability, and you can check that out on iTunes, and you can check it out on Spotify, or head over to pyramidpark.net, and you can pick up a CD or a vinyl from his website. And so we thought this would be really great content, bonus content, talking about the topic of vulnerability with a guy who wrote a song called Vulnerability on an album called Vulnerability. Really amazing lyrics, really amazing singer-songwriter based in the UK. He's in Cambridge, and so we jumped on an internet call with him and talked all about his music, some of his inspiration, what the Lord was doing in him when he was writing these songs. And again, we hope that this is a great follow-up bonus episode that just kind of helps you continue to have your mind set on the topic of vulnerability and just being open and honest, and not just with people around you, but also with the Lord in your relationship with Him. And so we hope you guys enjoy this bonus content, and then after the interview, we're actually going to play the track Vulnerability for you guys to listen to as well. There's going to be some links in the show notes to Pete McAllen's Pyramid Park's website, and we really just encourage you to go check that out, and we hope you are blessed by this bonus episode. Peace out. Welcome, everybody. This is a very special episode of the Salty Dogs Podcast. This is some bonus content for you, and I'm your host, or one of your hosts, Jason, and then we've got Chris Cerna. How's it going, Chris?
It's going good, man. This is podcast number 2 for me today.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Probably. What number is it for you? I think you did another.
This is actually number 3 for me today. I've been at it.
You're a bad man.
I know. So obviously Casey's out for this too, but not a problem. Casey will be back here soon. What makes this episode special to us is we have our first interview that is a call-in. It's not actually a call-in. We're on a Zoom conference call, but we have Pete McAllen with Pyramid Park, all the way from Cambridge, United Kingdom.
Hey, how are you? Thanks so much for having me on here.
Yeah, it's great. I'm super excited about this. So let me give just a little bit of a backstory about why we're doing this interview and what that's going to lead into. So Pete McAllen, he is Pyramid Park. He's a singer-songwriter, Christian singer-songwriter in the UK, and he has an album called Vulnerability. And specifically the title song, then Vulnerability, it's an amazing song, an amazing album. I'm a super fan.
Fanboy.
I know I'm a fanboy. I mean, I just have to say it. Like I do. I love the music. Like I don't know any other way to put it. But so Season 3, Episode 1 of the Salty Dogs Podcast was on the topic of depression, vulnerability, and honesty. And so we had our guest Matt Brown. If you haven't listened to that, be sure and go back and listen to Episode 1 of Season 3.
It's a great, super great and vulnerable episode. I mean, he was very vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. And so really that's why I thought of this song, and I thought of Pete with Pyramid Park, and I said, hey man, would you be willing? Reached out to him through email. He's really responsive, really open to, responding to people. And he's like, yeah, I'd love to be on. So really the purpose of this is to talk to Pete about his album Vulnerability, the song specifically Vulnerability. We're going to dive into a couple of the lyrics, and we just really want to hear kind of the story from him, why he felt like this was an important thing, an important topic really to write a song about. And so that'll tie into the importance of vulnerability, and you guys will hear this song. Also, he's going to allow us to play his song. And so I think it's some great additional content and conversation surrounding that topic of vulnerability. Always need to hammer down on that. And so again, Pete, so awesome to have you. And I'll just have you start off by telling us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do. And then we'll talk about your album Vulnerability and kind of what led you to go ahead and produce the music that you're producing. So
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me on the show, and it's a real honor. So, as you can tell, I'm from the UK. My English accent kind of gives me away, doesn't it? And
I love it.
yeah, thank you. So, yeah, I'm based in a place called Cambridge, which is well known for its university, and there's a lot of students that live here all through the year. And I have been writing songs for probably, well, over 10 years.
How old
Wow.
are you?
I'm now 35. You wouldn't believe it. I look young.
35.
Yeah.
You look like 22, man.
I just turned 35 like a week ago. So I hate telling people my age, but I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
So, and I used to work
Appreciate it.
for 7 years. I worked as a worship pastor in a church locally in
Oh, wow,
Cambridge,
cool.
which was really awesome. Loved working there. And so about 2 years ago, I was sensing a prompt to step out and do music full time. And I'd been writing songs for years, and it's part of my journey as a musician. You know, you just write. But I felt I needed to give it one big push to do this full time. So we stepped out, we took the risk. No record label, no kind of support network for it, just stepping out and starting. So that is where I'm from. So I have a little studio in my garage at home,
Nice.
which we converted a little while ago. So that's my writing room and my merch room and my, everything else that I need for running effectively a small record label.
It's your home base, right?
It's my home base.
Yeah.
So that's me in a nutshell. I'm married to Lizzie. I've got a little daughter called Lilia, who's 2 years old, and she loves music as well, and she will sing and sing and sing non-stop at the moment.
Yeah. Well, she's learning from dad. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. We all have young daughters. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. Her name is Ilana, and we call her Illy. And then Christopher has Everly. And how old is she? Same age, right?
She's two. Yeah, she's 2.5. They're 2 weeks apart. Our daughters, and so her name's Everly, and we call her Ellie. So there's Ellie and Illy, and they're cousins. So that's kind of fun.
If my little girl came along, it'd be Lily. So there we go.
Family, you got your home base, you're doing your music. Tell us a little bit about your album, Vulnerability, just kind of where that came from.
So Vulnerability it took a long time to kind of come to fruition, I guess. And the core theme of Vulnerability started really with that song. There was one track on the album which was an older song which didn't make it on another project called The Voice, which is the final track. It's quite big. It gets into this big builder, long track. But other than that, all the other songs were really quite fresh and in this whole theme of vulnerability. And I remember I was trying to write for this record, and we've got in our lounge a little piano where I sit and sometimes play it. And I can't really play piano, but I remember just like sitting there and plonking around on a few chords, and I was really frustrated. I was frustrated with not being able to write and knowing that it was time to release something else, and that it was important to do that. B, that I was just maxed out in every way in my life. My job was hectic, and I was feeling drained and tired, and that was having an effect on my emotions and my mental state. And so when I was sitting there at the piano, I was just like, God, I'm so frustrated and so tired and so kind of weak. I feel weak. And so I sat there and just played and played and played and played. And during that time, I just tried to pour out my heart to God. And I always find with worship, personally for me, the best thing I can do, especially when I was working as a worship pastor, is just like my personal worship times need to just be raw and unhinged almost, and
Probably very similar to David in the Psalms.
Sure. And I think for me, that is where I know there's something about worship for me that it's great. I can connect in church in all sorts of ways, whether it's through liturgy or whether it's through, the lights, the smoke and everything else. But there is a moment where you have to pour out of your heart, where it hurts or it costs you, or you have to push through a barrier. And for me, I was in that place of having to push through, and I knew it. So I just went there, and out of it calmed down, and it just came into this chorus of vulnerability. My life, lay it down in vulnerability. I prize vulnerability. I prize vulnerability with you. And I just sang it over and over and over again. And within probably 2 hours, most of the song was written out of that place of just raw worship.
That's awesome. I just got goosebumps, and I don't think it's because I'm cold.
So did I.
For real, it's powerful,
true.
man. It's really powerful. Just to, I mean, you hear the song and you read the lyrics, but to just hear where it comes from, and honestly, see, here's what I think is very significant about you telling us about that is, yeah, I think as a songwriter, there are times where you got your pen and your pad, and you sit down and you say, I'm going to write 30 minutes a day, and I'm going to try and create something. But when something is just birthed out of that place of authenticity and vulnerability, it carries a different kind of weight to it. You know what I mean? Rather than trying to sit down and like produce this thing that you hope is going to be a hit or people will resonate with, you're just being honest and real with the Lord, and really amazing things come out of those places. It's really powerful.
Yeah, and I think over the years I've realized as a worship leader, good worship leaders are good because they know what it's like to worship in pain, not through pain, not trying to fake, oh, I've had a bad week, so I'm gonna, when you have walked through pain in your life and you really have, I don't know, there's something about pain that produces incredible worship because, yeah, I when I worked for church, there was a girl who was leading one week, and she had a really tough few things happen to her, and we were chatting before we went on stage, and she was like, I know I've got to just worship through it, and I'm like, no, you don't. That's the whole thing. Please don't worship through it.
Yeah.
Worship in it, and allow that pain.
That's so powerful
To affect your worship in a way that nothing else could affect your worship in that moment, and that is a pure offering to God. And there will be someone else in the room who will be in the pain that you are feeling, and because you are leading in from that place of pain right now, they will be ministered to in a different way than if you just try to push through and ignore the pain.
Did you ever have the opportunity as a worship leader to like start with that, like what you just said? Were you ever able to communicate that to the people who were in the room?
Not as detailed as I just said now, but I've always tried to kind of say to people, come on, wherever you're at, this is a place to connect with God.
Because I think something like that would crack a service wide open.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that phrase, don't worship through it, I wrote it down. It's powerful. Don't worship through it, worship in it. I mean, I think if we could all posture ourselves in that way, it would be a game changer for so many of us. I'm curious to know, do you feel like many musicians find it hard to be vulnerable in their music as opposed to, let me write something that's going to be entertaining or catchy or easily marketable?
Obviously, like all those things go through your head. I'd be lying if I said, I just want to write from the heart all the time. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's tricky to say because you can't really judge the people's motives, but there are writers who will write for a market without a doubt, and fair enough, that's what they're meant to do. Where I sit personally, and it's probably all I can really speak about, is I feel I am best when I'm writing from the heart. And so with an album project, if I've got 7 songs that are downers, you kind of need a few that are going to lift the album a bit. So I would write with a bit more purpose, get a co-writer in and be like, okay, this is what I want to write about, can you help me a bit?
You could always just do a cover of If You're Happy and You Know It, Clap Your Hands.
Oh, there you go. What's really interesting is I resonate a lot with that. I mean, even as a pastor and somebody who teaches on stage, when you go into it and you're like, okay, what do people need to hear versus, okay, God, how are you breaking me right now? What are you teaching me? I mean, there's some raw vulnerability that comes with that, and people can feel that and they can connect with that. And it's a game changer, I think, and people really, I think, respect and appreciate that vulnerability aspect, not only from just pastors, but musicians. I mean, it is an art form. There are so many musicians who are pastoring people with the words that they say, one time a day, 2 times a day. Sometimes people listen to a song over and over again because those words are just resonating from their heart.
Absolutely. And I think when something is going to connect because you're trying a formula. I could lead worship or lead a crowd, even if it wasn't worship. I know techniques to help make people do something that I want them to do. But there's something that it's like, well, why would I do that? Because is this really going to be of benefit long term, or is this just to give people a good feeling for 20 minutes or whatever? And I totally agree with you.
That's awesome. It's so amazing to hear the story behind it. I want to focus on one of your lyrics for just a moment. So you quoted it, but you say, "I prize vulnerability. I prize vulnerability with you." Help us understand then just the importance of vulnerability with God. Like, how is that? How have you seen that just be a benefit for you, and how do you think vulnerability with God benefits everyone else?
Yeah, well, for me, I think relationship with God is number one in my life, and something that when I know it's not there, or I'm struggling to find the space for it, I know something's missing in my life. I've always I grew up watching my mum pray at home, and she would close the door and be like, "Don't disturb me, I'm praying." And that was kind of cool. And one day when I was 14, I asked her about it. I was like, what do you do in there? What happens when you go in that room? And that was really modeled to me. And I feel personally, she just encouraged me to connect with God in my own way. And so obviously we know ways, but I feel for me, when I really worship in that space through often singing, that's where I connect the most with the presence of God, and I can sense his presence, and I know I'm confident to hear his voice out of worship. I know I'm more likely to get it right in terms of tuning into what he's saying once I've worshipped than if I just go in and say, "God, speak to me," and just be still for 10 minutes, And so prizing vulnerability for me is, those times are my most precious times of worship in my life. Yes, there have been some amazing times in churches. Yes, there have been some amazing times from the stage, and they're all incredible things that you log in your mind as kind of key, pivotal moments in your life of, encountering God. But the real times where I can truly be 100% me with God are those times on my own, and I can really pour out my heart, and I can really give myself to God in a way that is costly but also pure, I think, and true to who I am. And I know that he accepts me and he loves me and he wants the best for me. And even if what I'm singing or saying is not right, I say I need to forgive someone and I'm just like, "God, I feel so angry about this," or whatever, that there is something about that purity of realness, because God knows anyway, right? So he knows how I feel regardless. But me being able to express that and pour out my heart to him brings some freedom, I think, to me, and which allows my heart to access and listen to his voice again. So that for me is that prizing of vulnerability.
Yeah, I think you hit on it when you said that that he's going to accept you. Like, I think that's such an important thing in vulnerability, is going to God and just laying it all on the table, laying your heart bare before him, and then knowing that when he sees it, like your lyric says, "You view the depths within my mind," like as deep as he can see within you, the brokenness, even the sin or the pain, the hurt, or whatever it may be that's in you, even when you lay that down before him, he's not going to reject you. He's still going to love you and accept you in that place. So knowing that you can be vulnerable with him, and because he's so wonderful.
And that's track record of relationship with him. When you've built time with him over the years, I think well, God, I know this area of my life is needing some work or a complete overhaul, but I still know the track record of spending time with you. I know your presence, and I hunger for that. And when I don't sense that, I want it, and I want to be right with you, even though I'm maybe missing it here or there.
Chris?
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, Pete, I think it's beautiful that you know the way that you connect with God. You know, if you were to go and sit down and I don't know, maybe I know that there are people who, when they get in the scriptures, they really feel like that is the area when they connect with God. For me, I know personally, when I get out in nature and I can just marvel and create, if I just go to the park and if I just get 30 minutes to sit to myself, I will feel so refreshed and can and feel like I can be vulnerable in that state. And I think it's important for listeners to find out how you can connect with God, because like any relationship, we all connect with Him differently. I want to reference a book that I would encourage if you're someone that doesn't has yet to kind of find that area how you can connect with God. There's a book called Sacred Pathways, and it outlines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think 8 different ways that people are likely to connect with God, and we can link that in the show notes. But I mean, I think vulnerability starts with figuring out how you connect with God, and then you going back to that same thing over and over and over again.
Totally. And you find, like, obviously solitude and silence, reading the scriptures, worship, all these things are really prayer are vital. But you do know your one thing that is your trigger almost to reconnection. And I think once you know that, that does bring, you can go back to that place again and refresh and be like, okay, I remember you, Lord, I remember.
It's almost like a deeper sense of intimacy. You know how some couples they have a song like, oh, that was our song, and we danced that or whatever. It's almost like this is our song, God, and it may not be a song, but this is our track to intimacy, and it's beautiful.
Totally. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to ask you real quick about this one specific lyric. And Chris, if you have any questions about lyrics, be sure and bring them up. But verse 2 here, just the last line, internally aligning body, spirit, soul. Just recently, I don't know, maybe within the past year and a half, 2 years, me and Chris in our walks, along with some other people, really started studying that idea of the tripart man, right? Where body, spirit, and soul. And when I heard that lyric, it just really resonated, because I feel like there's something to that and there's some importance. And so maybe just talk about that lyric for you and how that came out.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhere in Thessalonians, I don't know which one it is, but where Paul is talking about the triune being. That's where that's kind of referenced from. And it's, I know that when my spirit is alive, it affects the way that I see myself, in my soul, in my thinking, in my emotions, my feelings. And your soul is such a precious place that I think, we are learning in the church very much, and I'm very much still learning this, but that our soul really does tell us a lot about ourselves, but we also need to guard it and protect it and watch it carefully. And I believe that some of the things that we speak over ourselves and, from our feelings can affect positively or negatively our bodies.
Absolutely.
And to really be aware of that and be like, okay, I need to speak truth, not how I feel in this moment over my physical body. Things that I'm particularly as a musician concerned about is my hearing. So I want to speak life over my ears, and so sometimes I'll say a confession over, blessed are my ears for they hear, and I know it sounds really silly, but I'm aware of
not at all.
The impact of
we're right there with you, man.
My words to my hearing, and all these other areas of life as well. So yeah, spirit is always alive to God, and I want to be living in the spirit, not in the flesh. But how do I keep feeding my spirit? By making sure my soul is alive to God and ready to be corrected, to be in line with God, and how my body will come into line with what I speak and think over myself and sing over myself. So I'm even I don't want to get overly super religious over this, but I find certain things that I listen to musically, because I find music affects me in such a wonderful way. If I listen to something dark for too long, even if it's wonderful music, I will have to switch off for a while, because I just need to be looking after that aspect of my soul and keeping it pure. For other people, it won't impact them at all, but for me personally, I find that I have to really watch that kind of thing, and often I'll just put on something again. My favorite Bethel album at the moment is the Moments album. I don't know whether you've heard it, but the first track on that just completely dials me back into the presence of God.
Nice.
So that's kind of what I'm talking about in that body, spirit, soul lyric.
No, it's you make a great point, because we our thoughts can have physiological effects on us. And just think about anger. If you've ever been so angry that you're shaking, or you've been upset and so you weep, I mean, those emotions and feelings do have a some sort of effect on your body. And so, yeah, that whole aligning body, spirit, soul, well, we've talked about in the past, like, the spirit rules, the spirit in us can affect our soul, and then in turn affect our body. And so making sure that you're getting those things in order, I mean, it's such a big deal. And then with music affecting you, I think we all know, we don't ever talk about it in these terms, but music has frequency, and frequency affects us. If you've ever heard a high pitched tune, it's like, it makes you twitch. Or if you've ever seen a kind of a horror film, a scary movie, and it's this room, and they have that deep that bass line, and you're like, something bad's going to happen. That frequency, it affects you. And so I totally agree with the way the music makes you feel and that kind of stuff. I want to talk real quick just about another one of your songs. It's probably my favorite song on the album. It's Caught in the Depths. And it's just such a wonderful song. I've shared it with people, and just specifically the lyrics. I think I emailed you one day, and it talks about oh gosh, I just had it in my head and I forgot it. Where deep calls out to deep.
Yeah.
And just that it's such a powerful thing, because I just imagine, there's places that we get in worship and even in vulnerability, and there's just something in you that's longing out for the deeper things of God. You're saying, I've tasted and I've seen, but I want to go deeper and I want more. And so it's that place in you that's longing for more of God, and He's longing for you. So it's really a reciprocal thing. The kind of just this, like, I think of it's kind of a weird thing, but I think of like whales and how they call out to each other, like in water. And it's just this frequency that goes, and it travels long distances to connect you with those that are like you. And it's coming from us wanting to connect to the Father.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, he's back.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Nope, totally fine.
Wales,
he was just expressing his love for your music in Wales and all sorts of things. I pulled up the lyrics, and I'm as I'm looking to this next song, Caught in the Depths, and I listened to the last song, Vulnerability, a couple times through, and after reading both sets of lyrics, I mean, I'm excited. I feel like I'm going to become a fan of yours. I really like. I mean, I haven't even heard the music yet, but just reading your lyrics, they're so deep, and not only deep but purposeful, and I mean full of character and personality and emotion, and I'm excited to check it out.
Thank you. Well, it's interesting with Caught in the Depths, because that song was written, I would say that's the sister song of Vulnerability. So where the way that the album was kind of shaped was, other than the voice, Vulnerability and Caught in the Depths were the cornerstone songs of the album. And we wrestled in the studio about where they would sit in the album, because they're quite similar in feel, in language, in where we're trying to take people with the songs. So we had to separate them on the album. And I always felt Caught in the Depths is the one song that not many people really know about. So I'm really stoked that you love it.
I do. There's the one lyric, and this was the other one, where it's your bridge, and take me higher, wilder, to the mountaintop where the heavens touch the earth. And just that whole that whole idea of heaven meeting earth. Jesus said this is how you should pray, and that that the will of the Father is done on earth as it is in heaven. And you're saying, I want the world to collide. Like, take me to that place where I can get as close to you as possible, where you're breaking into my world. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think, like, What's the line? I'm trying to remember now because I should know my songs completely off by heart, shouldn't I?
You can Google your own lyrics.
Yeah, I know, that'd be awful, wouldn't it? But yeah, turning from all that I've grown, that's the line. And I remember writing that, turning from all that I've grown, and I had another lyric in line, and it kind of happened by mistake as I was playing again. And I was like, oh yeah, that sums up pretty much where I'm at, because where I was at writing that was, am I prepared to leave my job, my comfort, I love my worship team. I'm still part of the church, still part of the worship team, but I love
awesome.
all of that. And am I prepared to turn from everything that I've built and grown in this for the last 6.5 years? And the answer was yes. And obviously I did. But for me, that was a massive sacrifice moment of worship. And
Yeah.
okay, I've got to really mean this stuff and not just sing it,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, it's been great. Chris, do you have any other questions before we kind of wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, this one is less about you and just more of a personal interest. But have you ever heard of he's a solo artist. He calls himself Sleeping at Last. Have you ever heard of him?
I haven't, no.
You should check him out on Spotify. Now I'm basing one song that I heard off of this, but I really think you would like his work. It's really, really thoughtful. So Sleeping at Last, he's got a lot of stuff. He's got a lot of instrumental stuff. If you're familiar with the Enneagram, he's written songs about the Enneagram and stuff like that. So just super, super cool artist. So I'm looking forward to listening to your stuff. Where can we find you? Are you on Spotify?
Yeah. Spotify, Apple Music, all the usual places. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, because I do weekly vlogs, and some official music stuff. So please follow Spotify, subscribe, all that kind of stuff.
And is all of that under just Pyramid Park?
Pyramid Park, yeah.
All
Yeah,
right,
so-
I will do that.
So I've got your website pulled up. It's pyramidpark.net. And you can find out all about Pete and his music. I mean, obviously, you're on Spotify. You can listen for free. You can also purchase CDs and vinyl, and he will ship to the U.S., right?
Yes, he will.
Yeah, he will. He's got T-shirts, swag, hats. I mean, all sorts of fun stuff. Really cool artwork too. So there you can go to pyramidpark.net/shop and check out everything he has for sale there. I would encourage our listeners to buy a CD. I mean, you can get it for free, but right, let's support our indie artists and
Absolutely.
our fellow brothers in Christ. Hey, real quick, and something I meant to ask earlier. Tell us what's behind the name.
That's what everyone wants to know. So
Of course.
the honest answer is I spent 3 days looking for a new artist name. So I did some stuff before under my own name, and under some advice from people in the UK, it was suggested that they'd listen to the album Vulnerability. It was potentially going to be a Pete McCallan album, and then we just discussed whether there was a possibility of changing a name to create a bit more of an experience for people live, and also more of a band feel live. So when you go to a festival or something, and it's like, it used to be like Pete McCallan and his band, or it's really awkward.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't quite roll off the tongue.
it doesn't. It's not great, is it? I'm like, I don't want to be called the Pete McCallan Band or anything like that. So no offense to those who do it. So it was like, okay, new name. 3 days of searching all the names that I liked had been taken by other artists on Spotify, and so I was like, right, I need something that's going to stand out from an artwork point of view. So I thought, what about some shapes? I like the pyramids, so I went with the pyramids. All of those names were taken, so I landed on Pyramid Park. But the whole idea is that I love, when I was younger, someone spoke to me about, if you want to draw near to someone else, you need to draw near to God together, and as you do that, you'll grow closer together in relationship.
Right.
And the whole idea of the pyramid is like, we're on this journey. God gives us this massive, expansive space to explore and to enjoy, which is the park thing. But there are boundaries to it. If you look at the logo, it's all about that square of the park and all connecting to God. But God's boundaries are for our good, and it's to draw us closer to Him.
Yeah. I just not to make I'm not making fun of the name, but I
No.
I thought about it one day. I was like, huh, Pyramid Park. That's really interesting. Like, what if they what's the name, commercialized the pyramids in Giza,
Yeah.
and then it's just like they make this big huge parking lot, and it's like Disney World, but at the pyramids it's like Pyramid Park. Like, come on out, bring the family and check out the pyramids.
Maybe I should start my own theme park or something.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. No, it's great, man. We've obviously I've expressed my fandom. Again, I love the music. I'll keep listening to it. I'm so grateful for you sharing your story, and man, I'm excited about your crowdfunding initiative. Right, something's gonna come of that. Do I need to cut this out?
No, I am writing at the moment, and look out for some crowdfunding, likely to be the beginning of April for a new record.
That's awesome, man.
Awesome. Well, you've got my dollars.
Oh, thanks so much.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, anything you want to say to our audience?
Well, if you've never heard of Pyramid Park, obviously listen, and just keep pursuing that authentic walk with God. I think once you try and spend time with him every day, and try and make it a regular habit. It's not religion, it's relationship, but it takes discipline to build relationship. And I just encourage you to seek God, put him first, and you'll be in for a wild ride for the rest of your life.
It's good, man. Well, again, we appreciate it. Thank you so much, and God bless you in your endeavors. And I hope for you more of those authentic, vulnerable instances where some really amazing lyrics and music flows out of it, and people can listen and join in and be a recipient of the gifting that the Lord's placed in you. It's great. It's a gift to the body.
Thanks so much.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much.
You view the depths within my mind, the trails of truth I cannot hide, exclusive to you and me. Eternally you solve the riddles of my heart. You stabilize my wandering soul, holding the earth beneath my feet, rooted to your perfect plan, internally aligning body, spirit, soul. Where could I run, where you would be with me, there, my life, lay it down in vulnerability. I prize vulnerability. I prize vulnerability with you. You're fighting for the burdened heart, washing our troubled thoughts with peace, and binding up the wounded soul, entirely perfecting every single plan. Where could I run, where you would be with me, there, my life, lay it down in vulnerability. I prize vulnerability. I prize vulnerability with you. in vulnerability. I prize vulnerability. I prize vulnerability with